Hi, I'm Mark Villasana, owner of Northwest Insurance Agency and proud SMU alumni. Insurance rates right now are awful. You know it and I know it. But give me a call and let's take a look at your current policy and see if there's anywhere I can save you some money. My phone number is 214-352-5656, or you can email me at markv@nwagencies.com, or just give me a call to talk SMU athletics. Pony up.
This is the On the Pony Express podcast, part of the On3 network. Check out all the SMU coverage you need at ontheponyexpress.com. Now, here's your host, Billy Embody.
1, 2, 3, let me go.
Welcome in, ladies and gentlemen, to another edition of the On the Pony Express podcast. I'm Billy Embody, joined by Hayden Howerton. We are presented by our friends at Northwest Insurance Agency. Saw Mark Villasana at SMU basketball's game on Sunday, and a big supporter of the Mustangs. So check them out, Northwest Insurance Agency, and give them a shout. They'll just talk about your insurance and make sure you're covered, and also talk some SMU sports too. So lots to talk about this time of year. And we are dropping this episode on the first day of spring ball. So hopefully this gets you through the morning as you await word from practice as far as how players look, all the things out of spring ball for Rhett Lashley and the staff. But we've got a lot to get to on this episode as we do corners and wide receivers. Big episode. Hayden Howerton, how we doing?
Doing good, man. It's Sunday. We're recording at 9 a.m. instead of 9 p.m. So lighting's a little different for both of us. But going out, going to play some golf right before spring ball starts, as we're kind of wrapping up this true off-season winter portion of On the Pony Express. But look, we're, of course, talking about wide receivers and corners today. Realistically, the most gifted athletes on the field in terms of change of direction and speed. And as much as I could talk about the big boys, for hours, whether that be the defensive line or the offensive line, it is imperative that we have great skill players on this SMU roster. I mean, we always talked about it when I was at SMU, how fortunate we were to have guys like Shane Buechele, Tanner Mordecai, Rashee Rice, Reggie Robertson. I mean, these great athletes that came through, because the unfortunate truth is, if you have a great offensive line and nothing else, it doesn't matter who you hand the ball to. They're not going to make a guy miss in space when it counts. I mean, you can only go 4 yards in a cloud of dust for so long until you just, get wore out and you can't score. So we're going to have great guys at the wide receiver spot that can create these big-time explosive plays. And we're also going to have corners that can stick like glue to these guys, because wide receivers are improving every year. They're always getting faster, more explosive, and it becomes harder to cover those guys. I mean, you look at Derek Stingley, who just broke open the DB market, getting $90 million from the Texans. I mean, just hasn't been done yet. And the NFL is obviously seeing the value. I think college, it's becoming more and more important to find these great corners that are able to play man coverage so your safeties can roam, because with running quarterbacks, now you need extra guys that can really step up and fill and make those open field tackles. So we're going to talk about two really important position groups for SMU today, and they're going to definitely need a big-time spring coming up.
Yeah, no doubt. I mean, this is a huge spring, I think, more so even for the wide receiver group. I mean, just what they lose, and we'll talk about that, but also who they return, players that certainly have a chance to step up and take the reins as like a true leader in that room, both with production and with just leadership. But you also have some fresh blood in there and guys that are hungry. And I think those the two additions we'll talk about that are early enrollees for this room are really like wired the right way. They're wired like a Roger Daniels. They're wired like a Jake Bailey, guys like the Moochie Dixons, guys like that who really just continuously strive to work on their craft. I mean, that's what they've done for a lot of their high school careers. So it'll be interesting to see all that mesh with all the returning wide receivers that SMU has and some breakout potential candidates in that slot position room as well. And as, Roger Daniels and Jake Bailey are out the door. But I think this group has a chance to really be the wild card of this season for SMU. I mean, it could go kind of very similar to how it's gone the last couple of years, or maybe somebody finally has their breakout year and kind of changes their life and becomes an NFL draft pick, at some point. But before we get into all that and we break down the room, do want to remind you guys that we are presented by our friends at Mignon. Head up Preston Road, just south of the HEB, and it is one of the best restaurant experiences you can have. Fine dining, French-inspired steakhouse. Nick Natour, former SMU offensive lineman, and his family have run it for decades now. Incredible meal. We're recording this on Sunday, Hayden, and I really wish SMU basketball wasn't playing today because this is a place that I've been dying to get back to for brunch and experience Mignon and do it the right way. So they've got brunch on Sundays, but they also do dinner 7 days a week. I believe around 4:30 the bar opens and you can get there and start getting ready for dinner. But just an incredible experience. We encourage you guys to check it out. If you're in the Plano, Frisco, make the drive. It's worth it. I mean, this is a great restaurant. We appreciate their support of the On the Pony Express podcast. All right. After really making ourselves hungry there, let's.
I haven't eaten yet today, dude.
Maybe these SMU wide receivers will be a little bit hungrier now. So let's jump into them.
Yeah, so you look at the guys that we're bringing back, and yes, we have lost a lot, but we are returning Jordan Hudson, the former TCU transfer, 4-star recruit, 39 catches, 422 yards, 5 touchdowns last year. Third leading receiver on the team, and the Boston College game really shows what Jordan Hudson can do. 99 yards, 7 receptions, and a touchdown, easily his best game last year. And Billy, you talked to him after the game, and he talked about how that was a refresher and a reminder of what he can be. So I look at him going into spring as my number one guy of if he can play the way that he did against Boston College, and he can do that on a consistent basis, he'll hear his name called next April. But he's going to have to build on that. He's going to have to do all the things, bigger, stronger, faster, more athletic, all the things the receivers do. But I think the biggest plus that he's going to have is having a returning starting quarterback. He's going to have Kevin. Kevin's going to be working with him throughout this offseason. They're going to be catching balls on the side, in the indoor after school gets out, things like that, where they're going to continue to build that relationship, both personal and the on the field side. So you're also bringing back Romello Brinson, the former Miami transfer. He was hurt most of the year last year. He only played in 4 regular season games, but he did come back for that ACC championship. He had 5 receptions during that game. Another guy that kind of showed that potential just in one of those random contests. So 4th leading receiver on the team in 2023 before he, did get hurt and missed a lot of the year. But we're bringing back some slot receivers as well. Billy, who you got?
Yeah, Jackson Lavender, Jamarian Carroll. You're also bringing back Randy Reese. You got Ashton Cozart out there on the outside. Like you broke down the guys who have really done things on the field for SMU, but it's a room now that this is the make or break spring for that group. What you're going to get from Jordan Hudson and Romello Brinson. You'd love to see them take that next step and get more. But what you need now is you need some of that homegrown talent that admittedly wasn't necessarily recruited for the ACC to take that next step. Ashton Cozart came in from Oregon. He didn't see a snap for the Ducks and, flashed, I think, against Houston Baptist. But, now it's time for these guys to step up and take their opportunities. There's some buzz around Randy Reese and what he could bring the slot position, which is why they're starting Dalen Singleton on the outside. But it's a room that has options at that position. So those are some of the returners that we're going to find out a lot about. There's been depth. There's been talent in front of them, like Roderick Daniels and Jake Bailey. So we really haven't, they just haven't gotten those opportunities because those guys were so good. But now it's that time for those guys to get them.
And that's what spring's for, right? You're going to see a whole bunch of new faces out on the field. They're going to have meaningful playing time for the first time where, hey, guess what? You're going to be in the huddle next to Jordan Hudson. You're going to be in the huddle next to Kevin. And, hey, you're going to have to come up and make a play, because one of the things I love that Rhett Lashley does is he puts a big emphasis on the live periods, whether that be there's punishment, for the losing team, there's reward for the winning team. So if you're a receiver and you're a young guy or not even a receiver, if you're just any guy now in spring, this is your opportunity to show the rest of the team and build confidence in your teammates that, hey, when you need me, I'll come up big. But we have to talk about the departures. We are losing a lot. You talked about Roderick Daniels Jr., a homegrown Duncanville product. This is going to be the first season since 2021, my senior year, without Roderick Daniels Jr. making his presence known. He was a consistent contributor over the last 4 years. He had 42 receptions, 663 yards, and 4 touchdowns last year, including that 81-yard bomb where I don't think he could have been any more wide open against Duke. He did play some running back as well when we were really thin at depth. Brashard was a little bit banged up. We just needed a guy to be able to, do what the team needed, and he filled that role. If he hadn't had played running back, he probably would have had an 800, 900-yard season at wide receiver last year. But because he's a selfless guy, he did it for the good of the team. He ended up with 663. We're also losing Moochie Dixon, the former Texas transfer, 21 receptions, 386 yards last year, only 1 touchdown. It felt like he had more than that because of his explosiveness. I mean, he had an 87-yard touchdown reception against Stanford, and he got better as the season went on. He had 3 receptions in September and October, and then had 12 in November. So he just exploded in the month of November, really helped this team make that final push to the playoff. I am going to miss the memes that you just got, and I'll leave the blank for our viewers. But we're also going to miss Jake Bailey, former Rice transfer. He missed the back half of the year due to injury. A guy that really made his presence known the last couple of years in that slot receiver position. 19 receptions, 275 yards, touchdown versus Houston Christian. Definitely a better player than his stats represent, since the fact that he was hurt. 65 yards against Florida State, and then four receptions in 2 different games last year. And then finally, I really liked Keyshawn Smith. I thought he started coming along late in the year as well. Another Miami transfer, 33 receptions, 527 yards, 5 touchdowns, including a really crucial one as part of that fast start versus Louisville. You look at this unit as a whole, and no, did we have a 1,000-yard receiver? No, but we had so many guys that were contributors around that 500-yard mark where it really kind of created, one of those Cortland Sutton type production, just because we had so many guys that were willing to go and have, 4 receptions a game where we could really spread the ball around. And there were a bunch of different receivers where you weren't double teaming a single guy. And it helped Kevin create more plays.
Yeah, it did. And there's, look, it's such a weird conversation to have because SMU is used to having like a true number 1 or bona fide draft picks running around out there at wide receiver. In the last couple of years, we've seen really good football players. I mean, I don't care what the stats say. I just think with all the blocking that they do, with all of the selflessness, with the reps and the snaps and all those things, and I'm sure people can make the point that if Roderick Daniels was a day 2 draft pick, Jake Bailey wouldn't see the field. Sure, or Jordan Hudson, if he played up to a 5-star billing, maybe one of these other guys wouldn't see the field. Maybe, but SMU with their tempo and how fast they go and do all those things, and just the fact that these guys do have skill, talent, and they're all willing to block. I don't know. It's just been a good vibe around the receiver room rather than necessarily having that bona fide draft pick. I think SMU would love to have that day 1, day 2 guy and play him 80 snaps a game or whatever it is, but they also have a just good rotation and good culture about the room in a sense, but they need players to develop. Like Jordan Hudson needs to play up to his 5-star billing, because you see games like we saw this fall against BC that he steps up and you're like, all right, where is that Jordan Hudson every single week? So that's the biggest question for these guys that are returning. And look, the guys that left, there's a lot of talent. I could see a Keyshawn Smith landing on an NFL roster. Who would be a great special teamer is Moochie. Yeah. I mean, those guys, it's tough to sometimes see a Roderick Daniels or Jake Bailey finding their way on an NFL roster, but Roderick Daniels is a fun gadget player. If Kevontae Turpin could be on the Cowboys, maybe Roderick Daniels can kind of even up the specialists, special return men between the iron skillet rivalry in the NFL. So it's a good group. I'm gonna miss that group. A lot of maturity, a lot of talent and production walking out the door that SMU will have to replace.
Yeah, I mean, you said the maturity. I'm going to kind of flip the script here. I'm going to talk about Rob Likens just for a quick second. It is really hard to manage a wide receiver room. In 21, my senior year, we had a lot of big time personalities in that room, and it becomes difficult because everybody wants to have 10 receptions a game. Everybody wants to be the guy that ends up on Sports Center with these crazy James Prochet one-handed catches. But to have a good football team and to have a good room, you have to instill that sense of selflessness in that unit. And Rob Likens does an incredible job. I mean, it is just as important and potentially even more important for Rob Likens to throw a great block as it is to have no drop balls. And you just don't see that very often coming from a wide receiver coach because, again, blocks don't show up on paper. You know, how many receptions you have, how many touchdowns you have does. But as we go back to the guys that are coming into this room and that will become a part of that culture, I usually just give high school signees just a quick, 2-second mention. But I've got to talk about Jalen Cooper here. We did not go out and get a big-time wide receiver in the portal, but we got Jalen Cooper coming out of high school. All-American. We battled Notre Dame for this kid right at the end of the recruiting cycle. He's a little light in the pants right now, as most, high school freshmen are. 165 was his listed weight. I'd love to see him around the 180, 185 mark, but he's already enrolled. He's already got winter strength conditioning behind him, which will really help him. And he gets to go compete here in the spring. So our other freshmen, go ahead.
Jalen Cooper is unbelievable. And him and Dalen Singleton in winter workouts have been playing off each other really, really well. Both like very different. And in a sense, I would say like Jalen Cooper's always been on the radar. Dalen Singleton, for as fast as he is and as big of a program as he's played at, didn't get the respect I feel like he deserved. And maybe he did just South Dallas respect, but not as much nationally as I think he should have for all the speed, all the production. But Jalen Cooper, I believe he led all of 6A in receiving yards the last 2 years. So super productive, really refined route runner, and them coming in will be a huge boost long-term for the wide receiver room.
Yeah, you look at Dalen Singleton. I mean, he was a top 400 prospect. I mean, definitely no slouch, but yes, I agree with you. He definitely was under-recruited, undervalued, coming out of DeSoto, big-time football over there. I mean, that district is tough. You have a ton of just blue-chip programs down there. You're bringing in Carterius Brown out of Arlington Seguin. Isaiah Robertson is coming out of Arlington High School, and then you're bringing in Link Rhodes out of Las Vegas, Nevada as well. A lot of freshmen, a lot of new faces are going to be in that room that haven't seen a lot of college football yet, but definitely have a ton of potential coming into the 2025 season.
Yeah, and before we wrap up on the wide receivers, do want to shout out our friend Andy Ludicky, My Perfect Franchise. Give him a call. You can reach out to him, 404-973-9901 if you're interested in franchise ownership. I was talking to one of my buddies about My Perfect Franchise just a couple days ago and how he wants to get out of kind of the corporate rat race, has been in commercial real estate and just is kind of tiring of it, has done well for himself and wants to go down the franchise route. So linked him up with Andy Ludicky. And Andy, when he consults you on franchise ownership, his services are free. And whenever you decide to go down that route and decide on a franchise and what you want to do, and if you do contract all of that with him and get that linked up, he will donate some money to SMU's collective. So the collective of your choosing, he'll donate to. So if you're an SMU fan listening, it's a big extra kind of benefit to at least chatting with him and going through that process. You can email him andy@myperfectfranchise.net. So shout out to Andy. He's a big college football fan and also friends with family friends of Miles and Graham Uter. So live down in Alabama, and he plans on making a game this fall. But yeah, on this wide receiver room, as far final thought here, if they get one of the two, Jalen Cooper or Dalen Singleton, to emerge and complement Link Rhodes, the JUCO edition, and those guys kind of create that next 4 rotation, maybe 4-5 rotation with a guy like Randy Reese and Jordan Hudson and Romello Brinson as the returners, that'll be huge for this room, and you could feel a little bit better about it. But also a wild card is long-term. Does RJ Maryland play a little bit more of like a Kyle Pitts outside receiver role?
I had heard a little bit of rumblings of that as well. It's going to be interesting to see. I mean, he's obviously such a great route runner, such a great pass catcher, can get open. But I don't know. I mean, if we could get a bunch of guys out there that can do a bunch of different things, where we have an RJ and a Matthew, and we bring out Jalen Cooper and a couple other wide receivers, Jordan Hudson, we're going to have a serious pass threat in this year for Kevin to go take advantage of. I mean, I love Kevin. Everybody knows it. But I feel like every episode I'm talking about, wow, this team is really shaping up for Kevin to have a Heisman-type season. And he keeps getting disrespected in the national media. I think we're bringing in the weapons for Kevin to really take advantage of. And this is going to be a really fun offense to watch on Saturdays.
Yeah, no doubt about it. And look, I think the corner room, if there's a wild card room with the wide receivers, I think the corners are a little bit of that. The defensive line, they're being brought in to like absolutely be dudes. The linebacker room with guys like Alex Kilgore and the homegrown guys that are returning for another year, along with Zakai Barker and Kyle Firm, are coming in to be, like solidify things. The safety room, we know it's stacked. I think the corner room's a little bit of a wild card because you have Deuce Harmon, who played a lot better down the stretch last year, but then you have some other returning guys. You have some players that can certainly factor in. I mean, I think the versatility here, like Kyron Chambers listed as a corner, he's played a little safety. Jade Milner-Jones, listed as a safety, could play a little corner maybe, or like a slot corner. It's just kind of all over the place with what they're going to try to do to like put this room together and get it to take that next step, because you have guys like Jalen Davis Robinson, you guys like AJ Davis, Speedy Nettles, like it's all over the place. And that's before you even get to who they brought in. So it's quite the group that we've got to talk about here.
Yeah, and I think what's cool about the corner position in college is I think a lot of these guys you can plug and play in different positions. Maybe they play nickel a little bit here. Maybe they play corner here. I mean, you look at Brandon Stevens. I mean, he was a corner in college. He's a franchise nickel now for the New York Jets. Just got a big contract. But I have a newfound appreciation for corners after my last year in the league. I had a cool conversation with Jonathan Gannon where we were talking about corners, and he compared them to offensive linemen. He's like, look, those are the only two positions in football that work primarily going backwards in the pass game. And so this morning I had to hit a couple pass sets in the backyard, make sure I still had it. But in all seriousness, it is a really tough position, like we talked about. They always get clowned. They always get blamed. How can that guy give up that big play, that bomb touchdown over his head? But then guys talk about, oh, well, Jordan Hudson's a 5-star. He's this just incredible athlete. Of course he's going to make that corner look ridiculous. It takes a really special athlete to stick like glue on somebody without giving up much separation. So we're going to look at the returners. We're going to look at Deuce Harmon. I mean, former Texas A&M transfer. He started 9 games for us. Definitely improved the back half of the year where we started seeing a little bit more of that lockdown, that island mentality out of Deuce. He appeared in all 14 of our games, 31 tackles, 2.5 TFLs, 8 PBUs, and 1 pick. You look at his PFF grades, they definitely, increased as the year went on. When we were playing our better competition, I expect more of the same from him coming into this year. But you're also pairing that with Kyron Chambers, the former TCU transfer. Yes, he appeared in all 14 games, but he was more of a rotational piece. He was more of a guy that would come in for, a few snaps here, a few snaps there, only 10 tackles, 1 PBU. It's going to be interesting to see how he has this opportunity to compete for a starting spot in his 4th college football season. He did redshirt in 2023. He's going to have more eligibility after this season. You've got William Nettles coming in, true freshman last year, 5 appearances, including 1 in the postseason. It's good for him to get that kind of experience in those big-time games. And he's going to compete with Kyron for that spot. I mean, I think Deuce, I wouldn't call it a locked up spot by any means. There's always competition in the spring. But I think if anybody has a greater than 50% chance of locking up a starting corner spot, it's probably going to be Deuce. And then everybody else is going to compete for the other one, including Jaden Milner-Jones, former Colorado transfer, came from DeSoto, played under Dion in that first year in Boulder. He played in all 12 games for Dion back then, including that win in the primetime spot against TCU. In the first season with SMU, he only played in 6 games, and he just had a pair of tackles. So definitely not the production that he was looking for when he transferred in. So it's going to be interesting for me to see how he responds and attempts to get back in a crucial role for the SMU. All of these returners are going to have key roles. I don't look at these guys as, all right, well, that guy's obviously going to be a bench player this year. You even look at, William Nettles, the going to be true sophomore.
Speedy.
Yeah, he's speedy. That
Yeah.
dude can move. If they've got a Tyreek Hill kind of player where we're probably going to match him up over there just to make sure we can stay stuck to him.
Yeah, and like the speed of this corner room, I think, has been impressive. You add, and we'll talk about him in a second and some of the other guys, but like Jalen Davis Robinson has been there for a minute. Smoke, like he's got the speed. He needs to figure out the consistency to take that next step. AJ Davis has kind of battled some injuries here or there. He had that scary one this fall where he got carted off. I mean, you have Alex Rogers coming back, who redshirt. I think he redshirted last year or played a little bit on special teams, but another corner coming back. And I don't know. This is a group that I think Ricky Hunley would have loved to have maybe found another, and added another transfer to it. But overall, you're in good shape now. I think in the high school recruiting, you've really developed that and moved it along in a good situation as well. So
yeah. I mean, it's going to be interesting. Lots of talent, lots of speed in this room already. We do have to talk about our key losses. I mean, you look at CJ Sanders. I mean, we talked about him in the safety episode. Yes, played a little bit of both, but the guys we're bringing in, I'm actually really excited about this group. I'm looking at Marcellus Barnes, the Syracuse transfer, true freshman last year. And played in every game until his injury in November before he missed the rest of the season for the Orange. And I'm really excited what this kid can do. We're bringing in a young kid, a guy who has already played in the ACC, has already played some of the competition that we're going to see this fall. And you're pairing that with some of the high schoolers that are coming in. You're bringing in Zayden Gentry out of McKinney. You're bringing in Lamondrick Spencer out of Duncanville and his teammate, Javion Holiday, out of Duncanville. That Duncanville to SMU pipeline is insane. I mean, I can't think of another high school to college pipeline that gets more athletes from one school. But you said it, coached by Coach Huntley. I mean, another position group like the wide receivers, where you have to balance a lot of big-time personalities and get them to make sure that they're smart enough and disciplined enough to communicate, because when we're at home, it's going to be loud. Everybody talks about how on offense, you go on the road, it's going to be loud. When you're at home, especially with how Ford was rocking last year, it's going to be loud on defense. They're going to have to use hand signals. They're going to have to really overly communicate all the way from our sideline to the opposing sideline of, hey, what coverage are we in? Because that's when you see these busted coverages. Is a lot of times it's not that nobody knew what to do. It's they get the wrong call or they're not in the right coverage. They're thinking they have help in a spot that they don't. So it's going to be crucial for this unit to really come together, overly communicate, understand what's happening on the field with all of the different coverages and packages that we're going to bring in defensively.
Yeah. No, I think the packages with this defense is really what I think they have found different ways to get guys on the field and put them in different positions. And we kind of talked a little bit about this with the safety room with Ahmad Moses. Does he play a little nickel? Does he kind of slide down and kind of show that versatility? Because when you look at CJ Sanders and replacing that, I mean, like we talked about, so difficult. And he was kind of a fixer for that corner room in a sense. Like you're playing nickel, but because that position is so hard to play and you do face so many really good athletes and tough matchups and all of those things, when you get that high level of a play, it forces opposing offenses to maybe put more on their outside receivers, put more on winning, down the field matchups and things like that. So it's just one of those things where, you just, I don't know, that is going to be an underrated loss, I feel like. And, we talk about the guys that they're bringing in, guys like Zay Gentry and Lamondrick Spencer and Javion Holiday and Marcellus Barnes. There's so much versatility with that group. And the only one that isn't here for the spring is Zay, but they all have the skill set to make a difference in their first year on campus. And I really believe that, that Javion Holiday, Jay Holly is long, physically, looks the part. Same with Zay. But then you have Lamondrick Spencer, who's an older guy now, having been at JUCO, and Marcellus Barnes, when he was at Syracuse. He was playing as a true freshman and really, really impressing. So a really good situation here long-term for this corner room. And one thing I'll note about Marcellus Barnes, the Syracuse transfer, is they've kind of compared him to a Jonathan McGill-like type player away from the field. That type of approach, pro mentality. So a lot of positive buzz around him.
And we're going to have it for, hopefully, fingers crossed, many years. Unfortunately, with the transfer portal, you bring in a lot of guys who are older, more experienced, and it's more like a couple year rental, almost a lease on these players. When you get a guy like Marcellus Barnes, if he plays his whole career and lasts another 4 years, 3 years at SMU, you're going to get a guy that is going to mature and really buy in and help change the culture, the kind of whole experience of what being a corner at SMU looks like, because it's been a while since you look at a true lockdown college corner coming out of SMU. I would love to have one, but it just seems like a lot of time it's been by committee or we're just doing just enough. Now I'm looking at it. All right, we need a true island corner that can lock down some of these big time receivers that we're going to face in the ACC.
Yeah, it's got to happen. I think that was one of the biggest learning pieces for this staff of year one in the ACC. And not that they didn't know, like Rhett Lashley and the staff has coached in the SEC. They've coached in the ACC before. And the defensive staff, like you've seen guys with experience at various high levels. But the wide receivers that SMU faced this year, I mean, what, 8 ACC games plus, plus Jack Besh. I mean, there's so much size, speed, talent. You need bigger corners. And I think they check the box. Like Marcellus Barnes, I think he's listed 5'11", but so good. And Fran Brown, like when he left Georgia for Syracuse, that was like one of his guys that he was like, I've got to have him. And that says a lot. Fran Brown, DB coach by trade, one of the best recruiters in the country. And that's a good sign. And then you go out and you get a Lamadrick Spencer, Zay Gentry, you hold on to him, huge recruiting win, and Jay Ollie, like those guys all have size, and that's important long term.
I love what Fran Brown is doing, by the way. I saw something earlier today where he is instilling a new policy where half of the players' NIL money is going to go into savings, some form of savings account.
Good.
They're going to have a once a week financial literacy class for these guys. I mean, that's awesome. That's what you should be doing to really help these guys long term, because look, everybody wants to play in the NFL. Everybody wants to have this big, giant, long career. I mean, 90% of these guys just aren't. They're going to play their last snap in college and they're going to go into the workforce, which there's nothing wrong with that. But if you're making all this money now with NIL, where you're getting these 6-figure deals, you're probably going to take a pay cut when you're coming out of college. So
yeah, and if you put it away now, when you have all your meals taken care of, when you still get stipend, like that's not talked about enough. Like what was your last stipend check? Because I got one stipend check because I wasn't on scholarship, but they gave you a stipend check for the fall or for December when we were in our bowl game, which I thought was like insane. It was like $2,000.
Yeah,
being on campus for a month when but I think scholarship guys got like $6,000 or something back then. I don't know.
It wasn't that much. I mean, when you're in master's program, you get a little more. I mean, my stipend checks my senior year were like, it was like $2,300 or something like that. And yes, your meals are taken care of. I mean, and you get a cost of attendance check. That's like another couple thousand, like 2 times a year where, I'm glad for NIL. I think it is definitely necessary. I think these guys deserve to have financial compensation for everything that they do because they are a big part of the brand. I mean, even when we were playing, I mean, people were walking around with Shane Buechele jerseys before NIL was legal, where it's just like, dude, Shane would be making a bag if this was legal right now. But anyway, I mean, you still get stipend, you still get cost of attendance, you can still work on the side if you really want an internship or things like that. So, but anyway.
But if you put it away now, like you got I don't think at least retirement or whatever. I mean, I know this is turning into a financial literacy podcast, but if you put half of that away, you just get the jump. I mean,
Dave Ramsey will be our next guest.
All right. Before everybody slams their computer shut on us or flips over to Bussin' with the Boys or something podcast. All right. Any final thoughts on spring and corners or anything else before we wrap up?
It's just going to be a good opportunity. I mean, I'm praying that people stay healthy because unfortunately with these rotational groups, the thing that people don't realize is one guy goes down, it's unfortunately going to lead to more. Like at offensive line, it's one thing because you're not really a rotational bunch. You kind of just plug and play the next guy in there. But if let's say God forbid, let's say a corner does go down. More guys are having to get more reps, and more guys have the potential to pull hamstrings and things like that, where, oh yeah, now you're getting even more reps because 2 guys are down, and which just, it kind of snowballs. So guys need to take care of their bodies. They need to make sure in all hours of the day that they're not in class, that they're doing whatever it takes to recover. And that doesn't mean be in the training room for 10 hours a day, but that just means getting enough sleep, eating the right food, put your Normatec boots on, the compression boots that help you out. And maybe it's because I'm an old head now, but just try to help these guys out. Because definitely my last few years in the league, what helped me after having all those snaps at SMU was really taking advantage of the facilities. And SMU has a great one. I mean, they have all of the treatments, all of the different rooms, the cryo, the cold tubs. I mean, all kinds of things that we've been fortunate enough to have. It's just guys need to take advantage of it. And they do, but it's just kind of re-emphasizing that.
No doubt. Well, we do also want to re-emphasize our friends at roback.com, RHOBACK.com. Pony20 is the promo code to get 20% off your order today. The weather is heating up, and that means it is time to refresh your polos. And if you do want to just grab a hoodie while you're at it, take a look at their new collection. And I'll add, if you're watching on YouTube, you look at that azalea up at the top. Masters weekend is right around the corner. So make sure you're looking right for whether you're going and flying on status jet to Augusta, or whether you and your family, your wife, want to look the part for the Masters weekend. Check them out. They've got all the swag there. The azalea polo is incredible, and you should take advantage of it by using the code PONY20, PONY20 is the code for 20% off your order today. So roback.com, appreciate them. I want to add, and one thing that you and I read off last episode was Pro Day guys. And one of them, and we just kind of totally just missed it. I missed it. Isaac Pearson is going through Pro Day. So that means SMU is in search of a new punter, and one of the ones that we'll watch closely on this spring is Jackson Waller. He was a part of the team last year, backup punter. Him and Isaac, very different punting styles, but both have now been able to kind of learn off each other a little bit. SMU also has Sam Eccles from Austin, Texas, Austin High on the roster. He's a redshirt freshman. And then Wade McSparran, a freshman from, you guessed it, Australia, on the roster. So going to be really interesting to see how that goes. And funny enough, they are probably still doing roster updates because Isaac Pearson is still listed there. But Wade McSparran was a freshman in 2024 and didn't play in any games. So they are clearly getting the final tune-up done on the roster overall. But hey, sorry, specialists, unless you're Colin Rogers setting records, I mean, it's always going to be piecemealing it together in the offseason for us.
I think Pro Day, they're going to have at least Isaac's section outside. Because in the past, I mean, even during practice, you can't punt in the indoor. I mean,
No.
You're hitting the roof every time. So he'll be out on the practice field, I'm sure, or on the game field, but I'm sure everybody else will be in the indoor.
Well, now, big news, SMU getting grass, so they can't even do that. So he's just going to be out there on the practice field breaking it in for the spring.
Yeah, there you go. He'll be the first guy out there. But I am excited about that. I did tweet something where I'm really hoping they're going to do some kind of, sale for pieces of turf. It doesn't have to be the 26-yard line where I had this nice pancake block against Memphis or whatever. I'm just looking for a piece. I just want a little certificate, something that I can hang up here in the man cave. I mean, I might need to move my jerseys around and things like that for you guys. I might need to move out so you guys can get a little more appreciation for all the stuff I've got.
Yeah, you're interior designer over there.
It's more my wife, but thanks to our friends at Roback. I am wearing the Frenchie polo right now. Maverick, my French bulldog, is asleep on his bed right now in the office. But yeah, man, I can't wait for spring. It's going to be fun to watch. I think there's going to be a lot of guys, like there will in every spring, that really kind of emerge as they were a sleeper before. We might have not even talked about them during this preview. And going into training camp, it's like, all right, this guy is going to be a dude for us, just based on what we saw in the spring.
Yeah, no doubt. Also, I do want to remind you guys, spring ball is here, and it is a good reminder to get the official SMU game ball from our friends at Big Game USA. Use code BEON325 for a big discount on that. So make sure you pick up the game ball, and that'll be great. You can get it autographs done when the players finish up whatever spring finale is on April 25th. Spring ball is right here. I mean, a lot of opportunities to see the Mustangs, and we're looking forward to covering that for you guys on the Pony Express podcast and on theponyexpress.com. Subscribe for just $1 for your first week. Hayden, it's been a fun flurry of podcasts, getting back into it, and we'll have a lot more to talk about. Looking forward to having you back on as you get your first look at the Mustangs as well during spring. So it's been a great time previewing, but football is back and March Madness is rolling on and the Masters is right around the corner. So all good things this time of year. And, oh, yeah, NHL playoffs coming up as well. So hope everybody has a great week, and hopefully we'll see you guys on Wednesday at Hillside Tavern for our spring football kickoff luncheon. So head to ontheponyexpress.com for more information on that. For Hayden Howerton, I'm Billy Embody. We'll catch you guys next time. Thanks for listening.
Thanks for listening to the On the Pony Express podcast with Billy Embody.
Follow us on your socials on X at SMU on3 and on Instagram at on3SMU.
And keep it locked to ontheponyexpress.com for more coverage.